The millionaire begged, "Make my son speak and my salary is yours." The shy waitress froze, then smiled. And what happened next left everyone speechless. Before we dive in, let's light up this comment section with hearts from every corner of the world. The December rain hammered against the windows of the Golden Spoon, Seattle's most exclusive restaurant, as Alexander Hayes stepped through the mahogany doors with his son Liam clutched against his chest. The boy's small hands gripped his father's navy Armani suit, his eyes vacant despite the warmth of the luxurious interior. Alexander's jaw was tight, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. 6 years. 6 years of silence. "Mr. Hayes, your usual table?" The maitre d' rushed forward, recognizing the tech mogul immediately. Alexander nodded curtly, barely acknowledging the man as he carried Liam toward the private corner booth. His son's body was rigid, unresponsive to the gentle touch Alexander maintained on his back. They'd tried everything. Speech therapists from Johns Hopkins, behavioral specialists from Mayo Clinic, experimental treatments in Switzerland. Nothing. The boy who should be chattering about dinosaurs and superheroes remained locked in his soundless world. "I'll send your server right away, sir." Alexander settled Liam into the booth, arranging cushions around him with practiced care. The boy stared at the rain-streaked window, his profile heartbreakingly beautiful in the candlelight. Dark hair like his father's, but eyes that held mysteries Alexander couldn't penetrate. He'd built a billion-dollar empire by solving impossible problems, yet his own son remained the one puzzle he couldn't crack. "It's okay, buddy," Alexander whispered, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. "We'll just have a nice dinner, you and me." Footsteps approached, hesitant and soft against the marble floor. Alexander looked up, ready to bark his usual order when he saw her. The new server was young, maybe mid-20s, with light brown hair pulled into a simple bun and eyes the color of rain-washed steel. She wore the restaurant's standard uniform, black slacks and white shirt beneath a crisp apron. But there was something about the way she moved. Careful, observant, as if she was cataloging everything while trying to remain invisible. "Good evening, Mr. Hayes." Her voice was gentle, almost musical. "I'm Megan, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." Alexander barely glanced at her, his attention on Liam. "The boy needs chicken tenders plain with steamed vegetables." "I'll have the ribeye medium rare and a Macallan 25 neat." "Of course." But Megan didn't leave. Alexander felt her gaze linger, and when he looked up sharply, she was watching Liam with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not pity, thank God. Not pity. Something else. Recognition. "Is there a problem?" Alexander's tone turned icy. He'd dealt with enough curious stares, enough well-meaning strangers offering unsolicited advice about his son. Megan's cheeks flushed pink, and she took a small step back. "No, sir. I apologize. It's just, may I ask his name?" "Liam." The word came out harder than intended. "And before you suggest it, we've tried every therapy known to modern medicine. So unless you have a medical degree hidden under that apron, I'd appreciate you simply taking our order." The sharpness of his words hung in the air between them, and Alexander immediately felt the familiar guilt. He wasn't usually cruel to service staff, but exhaustion and desperation had worn his patients to nothing. Another doctor that morning had used the word hopeless. Hopeless, as if his brilliant, beautiful son was somehow broken beyond repair. But Megan didn't flinch. Instead, she met his gaze with quiet dignity. "I wasn't going to suggest anything, Mr. Hayes. I was simply going to say that Liam is a beautiful name. It means strong-willed warrior in Irish." Something in Alexander's chest tightened. He'd chosen the name himself, hoping his son would grow into its meaning. Before he could respond, Megan did something unexpected. She lowered herself gracefully to Liam's eye level, several feet away, respecting the boy's space. "Hello, Liam," she said softly, not reaching out, not demanding attention. "I hope you enjoy your dinner tonight." For one impossible second, Liam's gaze shifted from the window. His eyes found Megan's face and Alexander's breath caught. His son never looked at strangers. Never. But there was Liam, staring at this young waitress with something that looked almost like curiosity. Then the moment shattered. Liam's eyes returned to the window. his small body retreating back into its shell. But Alexander had seen it. That flicker of connection gone so fast he might have imagined it. Megan rose smoothly, her expression professionally neutral, though Alexander caught something in her eyes. A shadow of sadness, or perhaps understanding. "I'll put your order in right away, Mr. Hayes." She turned to leave, and Alexander heard himself speak before his brain caught up. "Wait." Megan paused, turning back with raised eyebrows. Alexander's fingers drummed against the table, a habit when he was processing complex problems. This waitress had done something in 30 seconds that dozens of specialists hadn't managed in years. She'd made Liam look. Actually look. It was probably nothing. A fluke. But Alexander hadn't climbed from a Philadelphia row house to the Forbes 400 by ignoring potential opportunities. "You," he said, his voice low and intense, "made my son look at you." I'm not sure what you mean, sir." "Don't play modest. Liam hasn't made eye contact with a stranger in over a year. You did something. What was it?" Megan's hands twisted slightly in her apron, a nervous gesture that made her seem younger than her years. "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Hayes. I just spoke to him like a person, not a problem." The words hit Alexander like a physical blow. How many times had he heard doctors discussing Liam as a case study, a diagnosis, a condition to be managed? When had he last simply talked to his son without searching every word for progress, for meaning, for hope? "I have a proposition for you." Alexander leaned forward, his businessman's instinct taking over. "Spend time with Liam. Make him speak. If you can get my son to say one word, just one word, I'll give you my monthly salary." Megan's eyes widened. "Mr. Hayes, I'm just a waitress. I'm not qualified to $250,000. Alexander cut her off, naming a figure that would change any working-class person's life. "1 month. Make my son speak." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Rain continued to hammer against the windows. Somewhere in the kitchen, dishes clinked. But in their corner booth, time hung suspended as Megan stared at Alexander, her gray eyes searching his face. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because," Alexander said simply, "you're the first person he's looked at in a year. That has to mean something." Megan's gaze drifted to Liam, and Alexander saw it again. That strange recognition, as if she saw something in his silent son that others missed. When she looked back at Alexander, there was steel beneath her gentle exterior. "I'm not interested in your money, Mr. Hayes." Alexander blinked. In his world, everyone was interested in money. Everyone. "Then what do you want?" "Respect." Megan's chin lifted slightly. "If I agree to spend time with Liam, and I'm not saying I will, it won't be because you're paying me. It will be because every child deserves someone who sees them as perfect exactly as they are." For the first time in months, Alexander Hayes was speechless. This young waitress, who probably earned minimum wage plus tips, had just rejected $250,000 and lectured him about seeing his own son. He should have been insulted. Instead, he felt something unexpected. Hope. "Then why would you do it?" he asked quietly. Megan's expression softened, and for just a moment, Alexander glimpsed an ocean of pain behind her eyes. "Because I know what it's like to be silent when you have so much to say." Before Alexander could respond, Liam's small hand reached out and touched the table where Megan had been standing moments before. The gesture was so deliberate, so purposeful, that both adults froze. Liam's fingers traced an invisible pattern on the wood, his eyes still fixed on the rain. But he was reaching, toward where she had been. "I'll bring your dinner," Megan said softly. And this time, Alexander didn't stop her as she walked away. He watched her disappear into the kitchen, his mind racing with possibilities and questions. Who was this mysterious waitress who refused his money? What secrets hid behind those gray eyes? And why did his son respond to her when he'd remained unreachable to everyone else? Alexander looked down at Liam's small hand, still resting on the table, still tracing that invisible pattern. Maybe, just maybe, this rain-soaked December night was the beginning of something impossible. Maybe miracles did exist, wearing servers' aprons and speaking in gentle voices. Maybe hope had a name, and it was Megan. 3 days later, Alexander found himself doing something he'd never done before. Standing in the employee parking lot of the Golden Spoon at 10:47 p.m., waiting for a waitress to finish her shift. The December cold bit through his cashmere coat, but he barely noticed. He'd spent the past 72 hours researching Megan Cole, or trying to. The woman was a ghost. No social media presence, no LinkedIn profile. Her employment records showed she'd started at the restaurant 6 months ago, listing an address in a modest neighborhood near Green Lake. Before that, nothing. It was as if Megan Cole hadn't existed before June 2024. Alexander knew because he'd hired the same investigator who'd vetted his executive team. The report had come back frustratingly thin. "Most people leave digital footprints, Mr. Hayes," the investigator had said. "Miss Cole has actively erased hers," which only made Alexander more curious, and more convinced she was exactly what Liam needed. The restaurant's back door opened and Megan emerged, pulling a thin jacket around herself against the cold. She froze when she saw Alexander leaning against his midnight blue Tesla, and for a second, he thought she might bolt. "Mr. Hayes." Her voice was carefully neutral. "Are you lost?" "I'm exactly where I need to be." Alexander pushed off from the car. "We need to talk about my proposition." "I already gave you my answer. You said you weren't interested in money. I'm listening. What would make you interested?" Megan's eyes narrowed slightly, and Alexander recognized the look. It was the same expression he wore when calculating risk versus reward in a business deal. This young woman was smarter than she pretended to be. "Why are you really here, Mr. Hayes? You don't strike me as someone who chases down waitresses in parking lots." "I'm here because my son hasn't slept through the night in 6 years. Because I've exhausted every medical option. Because 3 days ago you made him look at you. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about what that means." The words came out rawer than Alexander intended, and he saw Megan's expression shift, surprise then something that looked like sympathy, like, "I'm sorry you're going through this," she said quietly, "but I can't help you." Can't or won't. Both. Megan started toward an old Honda Civic that had seen better days. "I'm just a waitress, Mr. Hayes. Whatever you think you saw, you're mistaken." Alexander moved to block her path, then immediately stepped back when he saw her stiffen. Too aggressive. He forced himself to take a breath, to approach this like a negotiation instead of a desperate father grasping at straws. "You're lying," he said simply, "and you're not very good at it. The way you moved around Liam, the specific distance you maintained, the tone of your voice, those aren't instincts, that's training." Megan's hands clenched at her sides. "You don't know anything about me." "Then tell me, who are you really, Megan Cole?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Rain began to fall again, light and cold, but neither of them moved. Alexander watched emotions flicker across her face, fear, anger, longing, pain. Whatever she was hiding, it was eating her alive. "I used to be someone," Megan finally said, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Someone who helped children like Liam, someone who was good at it. But that person is gone, Mr. Hayes. I can't bring her back, even for your son." Alexander's pulse quickened. He'd been right. "What happened?" "None of your business." "It is if it involves my son." Megan's eyes flashed with sudden fire. "Your son is a beautiful, perfect child who doesn't need to be fixed. He needs to be understood, and I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't be responsible for another child. I can't carry that weight again." And the pain in her words was so raw that Alexander felt it in his chest. Whatever had happened to this woman, it had shattered her. But he also heard something else. Genuine care for Liam, even though she barely knew him. "Then don't be responsible," Alexander said carefully. "Just be present, spend time with him, no pressure, no expectations. Let him teach you what he needs." "That's not how it works." "Then show me how it does work. Because right now I'm failing my son every single day, and I'm running out of options." Megan's eyes met his, and Alexander saw the war happening behind them. She wanted to say yes. He could feel it. But something was holding her back. Some ghost from her past that had its claws deep in her soul. "If I do this," she said slowly, "it's not for money. It's not for you. It's for Liam." Because he deserves better than the parade of specialists you've probably dragged him through. Alexander flinched but nodded. Agreed. And we do this my way. No doctors, no therapists, no observation rooms with two-way mirrors. Just me, Liam, and time. How much time? As long as it takes. And if I say stop, we stop. No arguments, no negotiation. My decision is final. Alexander's business instincts screamed at him. Never give someone complete control, especially someone with an erased past. But his father's instincts, the ones he'd learned to trust above all else, told him to say yes. Deal. He extended his hand. Megan looked at it for a long moment before shaking it. Her hand was small and cold in his, but her grip was firm. I'll need you to clear your schedule for tomorrow afternoon. Bring Liam to Green Lake Park by the duck pond. 3 p.m. I have a board meeting. Then Liam is clearly not your priority. Alexander's jaw tightened. No one spoke to him like that. No one. But he thought of Liam's small hand reaching toward where Megan had stood and swallowed his pride. I'll be there. Megan released his hand and moved toward her car. Mr. Hayes, one more thing. Yes? Whatever you think you'll find when you dig into my past, and I know you're already digging, it won't help you understand what Liam needs. Some things can't be researched. They can only be felt. She drove away before Alexander could respond, her taillights disappearing into the December rain. He stood in the empty parking lot, his coat now soaked, his mind racing. Who was Megan Cole? What had happened to make her erase her entire digital existence? And why did every instinct tell him that this mysterious, damaged woman was exactly what his son needed? Alexander pulled out his phone and sent a text to his assistant. Cancel everything tomorrow afternoon. Personal emergency. Then he sent another to his investigator. Expand the search. I want to know everything about Megan Cole, starting from birth. Price is no object. The next afternoon, Alexander arrived at Green Lake Park 15 minutes early with Liam bundled in a warm coat. The duck pond shimmered under pale winter sun, and families walked the paths despite the cold. Liam sat quietly on the park bench, his small hands folded in his lap, eyes tracking the ducks but showing no emotion. She'll be here soon, buddy, Alexander said, though he wasn't entirely sure. Maybe Megan had changed her mind. Maybe last night's conversation had been too intense, too revealing. But at exactly 3 p.m., Megan appeared on the path. She wasn't wearing her restaurant uniform. Instead, she wore jeans, boots, and a thick cream sweater that made her look younger, softer. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in waves. She carried a backpack. Hello, Liam, she said, approaching slowly. Then to Alexander, you can go now. Alexander blinked. Excuse me? This works better without parental observation. You're free to watch from a distance if you need to, but please give us space. I'm not leaving my son with a stranger. Megan's expression remained calm. Then this won't work. Trust is the foundation of everything, Mr. Hayes. Liam needs to know he can be himself without being watched, analyzed, or judged. Alexander looked at his son, then back at Megan. Every protective instinct screamed at him to refuse. But he remembered their agreement, her way, or no way at all. I'll be at the coffee shop across the street, he said tightly. You have 1 hour. We'll take as long as we need. Alexander's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to walk away. Every few steps he glanced back. Megan had sat down beside Liam, not too close, and was pulling items from her backpack. Books, colored pencils. What looked like a small wooden puzzle. She wasn't trying to engage Liam. She was simply existing beside him, creating a quiet presence without demands. Alexander made it to the coffee shop and ordered an espresso he didn't drink. Instead, he watched through the window. 45 minutes passed. Megan and Liam sat together in comfortable silence. Occasionally she'd show him something, but never pushed. Just offered and waited. Then Alexander saw it. Liam's hand slowly reached toward one of the colored pencils. He picked it up, examining it in the pale sunlight. Megan didn't react, didn't praise, didn't make a big deal of it. She simply opened a sketchbook and began drawing, her movements relaxed and natural. And Liam, his beautiful, silent son, lowered the pencil to a blank page and made a single mark. one blue line across white paper. Alexander's espresso cup rattled against its saucer as his hand shook. It wasn't speech. It wasn't even close. But it was communication. It was Liam reaching out, choosing to engage with the world instead of hiding from it. Who the hell was Megan Cole? 2 weeks into their arrangement, Alexander had learned 3 things about Megan Cole. She was punctual to the minute. She never accepted his offers to drive her anywhere, and she was transforming his son in ways he'd thought impossible. Liam hadn't spoken yet, but he'd started drawing. Complex, beautiful pictures that suggested an inner world far richer than anyone had imagined. What Alexander hadn't learned was anything about Megan's past. His investigator had finally found something, and the report sat like lead in Alexander's briefcase as he drove to Green Lake Park for another session. He shouldn't read it. Their agreement was based on trust, but the need to protect his son overrode everything else. He'd waited until parking before opening the file. What he found made his blood run cold. Dr. Megan Elizabeth Cole, Ph.D. in child psychology from Stanford, former head of pediatric trauma therapy at Seattle Children's Hospital, published researcher in selective mutism and childhood trauma. By age 28, she'd been one of the most promising child psychologists on the West Coast. Then, 2 years ago, a case, a patient, a tragedy. The details were sealed, but the investigator had found newspaper articles. A 7-year-old patient under Dr. Cole's care had died. The death was ruled accidental, no fault found with Dr. Cole's treatment. But she'd resigned immediately, forfeited her license, and disappeared from the medical community entirely. Alexander stared at the report, his mind reeling. Megan wasn't just qualified to help Liam, she was overqualified. She'd been brilliant. And something had broken her so completely that she'd erased her entire professional existence. Mr. Hayes? Alexander's head snapped up. Megan stood beside his car window, her expression puzzled. Are you coming? Liam's waiting. Alexander quickly closed the file, but not before Megan's eyes caught the Stanford logo on the letterhead. Her face went white. You investigated me. It wasn't a question. Alexander climbed out of the car, the file clutched in his hand. I had to know who was spending time with my son. And now you know. Megan's voice was hollow. Dr. Cole, the child psychologist who killed her patient. The report says it was an accident. No fault. The report is wrong. The words exploded from Megan with devastating force. I was responsible for Emma. I was supposed to protect her, and she died because I missed something. Because I wasn't good enough. Megan, no. She took a step back, her hands shaking. This is exactly why I stopped. Why I can't do this anymore. You want me to help Liam, but what if I fail him too? What if I miss something again? Alexander saw it then. The weight she'd been carrying. The guilt that had crushed her enough to walk away from everything she'd built. Whatever had happened with Emma, Megan believed she was responsible no matter what the official report said. Then fail, Alexander said quietly. Fail 100 times, but don't fail by walking away. Megan's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You don't understand. Emma's mother trusted me. She believed I could help her daughter. And Her voice broke. I have nightmares every night where Emma's calling for me and I can't reach her. I can't survive that again. So you'd rather survive as half a person? Working a job that doesn't challenge you? Hiding your brilliance? Pretending you're just a waitress? Alexander's voice was gentle but firm. That's not survival, Megan. That's slow death. At least no one else gets hurt in my slow death. What about Liam? Alexander pulled out his phone, showing her a photo from yesterday. Liam smiling, actually smiling while drawing one of his pictures. You've given him something no specialist could. Hope, connection, a reason to reach out instead of retreat. Are you going to take that away because you're afraid? Megan stared at the photo, her breath catching. That's not fair. Nothing about this situation is fair. Not what happened to you, not what happened to Emma, not Liam's silence. But here we are, and you have a choice. Let your past define you, or let it refine you. For a long moment, Megan said nothing. Alexander watched emotions war across her face. Fear, grief, longing, determination. Finally, she looked up, meeting his eyes with something that looked almost like courage. If I keep doing this, and that's a big if, we need new rules. Name them. No more investigating me. No more digging into my past. What I choose to share, I share. The rest stays buried. Alexander nodded slowly. Agreed. And if I need to stop, even if Liam's making progress, you have to let me walk away. No guilt, no pressure, no trying to change my mind. That was harder to accept. But Alexander recognized the look in her eyes, the same desperate need for control he felt every time a doctor suggested a new treatment for Liam. Agreed. Megan's shoulders relaxed fractionally. And one more thing. Stop calling me Megan like you know me. You don't. You know my credentials and my tragedy, but you don't know me. Then help me know you, Alexander said softly. Not as Dr. Cole or the waitress or the woman with the tragic past, just as Megan, whatever that means to you. Something flickered in Megan's expression. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of trust. Before she could respond, they both heard it. A sound from the park bench where Liam sat waiting. Humming. Soft and tentative, but unmistakably musical. Alexander and Megan both froze, staring at the little boy who'd been silent for 6 years. Liam was humming, actually producing sound while drawing in his sketchbook. The tune was simple, childlike, but to Alexander it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. Oh my God, Alexander breathed. But Megan moved quickly, grabbing his arm before he could rush forward. Don't, she warned. Don't make a big deal of it. Just let him be. Let him discover his voice at his own pace. It took every ounce of Alexander's control, but he stayed still. He watched his son hum that simple melody, watched Megan slowly approach and sit beside him without comment, watched her pick up her own pencil and draw as if nothing miraculous was happening. But it was miraculous. After 6 years of silence, his son was making sounds, and it was all because of a broken woman who'd tried to run from her gifts, but couldn't escape who she truly was. Alexander looked at Megan, really looked at her, and saw something that terrified him. She wasn't just Liam's miracle. She was becoming his too. This brilliant, damaged, mysterious woman who refused his money and challenged his assumptions and made him want to be better than he was. Thank you, he said quietly, though Megan couldn't hear him from where she sat with Liam. And as the December sun filtered through bare trees, Alexander Hayes realized that maybe the miracle he'd been searching for wasn't just about making Liam speak. Maybe it was about learning to listen. To his son, to this extraordinary woman, and to the voice inside himself that said some things were worth more than all his billions combined. Maybe love had been waiting all along, disguised as hope, speaking in colors and music and the sound of a child's first hum in 6 years. Maybe miracles did exist. And maybe they were just beginning. Christmas Eve arrived with unexpected snow, blanketing Seattle in white silence. Alexander stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching the city transform while his phone buzzed incessantly with ignored calls. His mother, Victoria Hayes, was hosting her annual charity gala tonight, an event where Seattle's elite gathered to see and be seen. She expected him to attend, with his son, and preferably with an appropriate woman on his arm. The problem was Alexander couldn't stop thinking about an inappropriate woman, one who wore server uniforms and carried secrets, and was slowly bringing his son back to life. 3 weeks since that first hum, and Liam had progressed to soft vocalizations. Not words yet, but sounds with intention. Laughter when Megan showed him something funny. Sighs of contentment when drawing. Each sound was a victory that made Alexander's chest ache with emotions he'd thought dead since his wife Claire had walked out 4 years ago. Claire, beautiful, ambitious Claire, who'd taken one look at their silent son and decided motherhood wasn't worth sacrificing her modeling career. The divorce papers had arrived on Liam's 2nd birthday. Mr. Hayes? His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, appeared in the doorway. Your mother is on the line again. She's quite insistent. Alexander sighed. Tell her I'll be there. But he wouldn't go alone. An idea had been forming, reckless, possibly stupid, but impossible to ignore. He picked up his phone and dialed Megan's number. Hello? Her voice was cautious. They'd maintained professional distance since the parking lot confrontation. "I need a favor," Alexander said. "And before you refuse, hear me out. This already sounds like a bad idea. My mother is hosting a charity gala tonight. She wants to meet Liam. More importantly, she wants to interrogate whoever I'm dating about their pedigree and bank account. You're not dating anyone." "Exactly. Which is where you come in." Silence. Then, "Absolutely not. Megan, my mother will eat Liam alive with her judgments and expectations. But if I show up with someone she needs to impress, someone who can deflect her attention, find another actress for your charade, Mr. Hayes. I don't want an actress. I want someone who actually cares about my son. Someone who will stand between him and the vultures who will stare and whisper and offer their useless medical opinions." More silence. Alexander could almost hear her internal debate. One night, Megan finally said, "And you owe me. Name your price. Tell me why your wife left." The request caught Alexander off guard. "That's personal. You investigated my tragedy. Fair is fair." Alexander's jaw tightened, but she was right. She left because Liam wasn't perfect, because being a special needs mother didn't fit her brand. She signed away her parental rights for a settlement and never looked back. "I'm sorry," Megan said softly. "No child deserves that." "No. But now you know why I need someone who won't see Liam as a problem to be fixed or a burden to be managed. I need someone who sees him as perfect exactly as he is. Your words, remember. You fight dirty, Mr. Hayes. When it matters, yes. I'll send a car at 6, wear something fancy. I don't own anything fancy. Then wear something you feel confident in. That's all that matters." When Alexander ended the call, he felt something unfamiliar. Nervous anticipation. This was supposed to be about protecting Liam. So why did his pulse quicken at the thought of Megan in his world, standing beside him as more than just his son's therapist? At 6:47 p.m., Alexander's penthouse elevator opened and Megan stepped out. Alexander's breath caught. She wore a simple emerald dress that brought out the gray in her eyes, her hair swept up to reveal her neck. No expensive jewelry, no designer labels. But she was stunning. "Don't look at me like that," Megan said, her cheeks flushing. "This is business." "Of course." Alexander adjusted his bow tie, suddenly aware of how formal his tuxedo felt. Liam's excited, he picked out his own tie. A blue one with ducks on it, worn with his tiny suit. Megan's expression softened. "Where is he?" "Living room. Fair warning, he wants to show you his newest drawing." They found Liam on the carpet, surrounded by art supplies. When he saw Megan, his face lit up with a smile that made Alexander's heart twist. His son had smiled more in 3 weeks with Megan than in years with specialists. "Hi, Liam." Megan knelt beside him, her dress pooling around her. "What are you working on?" Liam held up a picture. 3 figures. A tall man in blue, a small boy, and a woman with yellow hair. They were holding hands under a rainbow. "That's beautiful," Megan whispered, and Alexander saw her eyes shimmer with tears. The drive to the Four Seasons was quiet. Liam sat between them in the back of the town car, his small hand resting on Megan's arm. Alexander watched them in the reflection of the window and felt something shift in his chest. They looked like a family. An impossible, complicated, completely improbable family. "Tell me about your mother," Megan said suddenly. "So, I know what I'm walking into." Alexander chose his words carefully. "Victoria Hayes is old Seattle money. She believes in maintaining appearances, strategic marriages, and that children should be seen but not heard, which makes Liam's silence both a disappointment and a convenience to her." "She sounds delightful," Megan said dryly. "She's complicated. She loves me in her way. But her way involves control and expectations that I stopped meeting years ago, when I made my own fortune instead of managing hers. So tonight is about proving you don't need her approval? Tonight is about protecting Liam from her judgment." The Four Seasons ballroom glittered with crystal and champagne. Women in designer gowns air-kissed while men discussed portfolios and politics. Alexander felt Megan stiffen beside him as eyes turned their way, assessing, calculating. "Mr. Hayes," a board member approached. "We expected you to skip this year. Couldn't disappoint my mother." Alexander's hand moved to the small of Megan's back, a protective gesture. Robert Chen, this is Megan Cole. Robert's eyes swept over Megan with barely concealed curiosity. Charming. And what do you do, Miss Cole? Before Megan could answer, a voice cut through the crowd like a blade. Alexander, you're late. Victoria Hayes approached in ice blue silk, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her expression perfectly controlled. She looked at Liam with the same warmth she might show a piece of furniture, then turned her attention to Megan with sharp interest. Mother. Alexander's tone was cool. This is Megan Cole. Megan, my mother. Victoria Hayes. Mrs. Hayes. Megan extended her hand with surprising grace. Your charity work is admirable. Victoria's handshake was brief. How kind. And how did you meet my son? Let me guess. Through business? Through Liam, actually. Megan's voice remained steady despite the obvious interrogation. I've been spending time with him. How? Maternal. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. And what exactly do you do, Miss Cole? Alexander felt Megan tense. This was the moment she could expose herself, claim her credentials, meet his mother on equal intellectual footing. Instead, she lifted her chin and said clearly, I'm a waitress at the Golden Spoon. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert Chen's eyebrows shot up. Victoria's expression froze into something between horror and fury. Around them, conversations paused as people strained to hear. A waitress, Victoria repeated, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Alexander, might I have a word with you privately? No. Alexander's arm moved around Megan's waist. Anything you need to say, you can say here. Very well. Victoria's eyes were ice. I will not stand by and watch you embarrass this family with some gold-digging service worker who saw an opportunity. That's enough. Alexander's voice cut like steel. You don't know anything about Megan. I know she serves food for a living and you're worth $3 billion. The math isn't complicated. The complicated part, Megan said quietly, stunning them both, is that I don't want his money, Mrs. Hayes. I never have. I'm here because your grandson needed someone who saw him as a person, not a problem. If that's embarrassing to you, perhaps the problem isn't me. Victoria's face flushed red. How dare you? A small sound interrupted her. Everyone turned to see Liam, his hand tugging on Megan's dress, his mouth opening and closing as if trying to form words. His eyes were wide, distressed by the tension in adult voices. Hey. Megan knelt immediately, her full attention on Liam. It's okay. Everything's okay. And then, clear as crystal in the silent ballroom, Liam spoke his first word in 6 years. Meg. The world stopped. Alexander felt his knees go weak. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Around them, people stared in shock. But Megan just smiled, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, Yes, sweetheart, I'm here. Meg. Liam repeated, his small arms reaching for her. Meg, stay. Alexander couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His son, his beautiful, silent son, had spoken, had chosen his first word. And it wasn't Dad or Mama. It was the name of the woman who'd refused his money, challenged his assumptions, and loved his son without conditions. Megan lifted Liam into her arms, holding him close while he buried his face in her neck. And Alexander saw it clearly for the first time. He wasn't falling for Megan Cole despite her complications. He was falling for her because of them. Because she was brave enough to be broken, strong enough to try again, and selfless enough to put a child's needs before her own fears. I think, Victoria said shakily, her eyes on her grandson, I owe you an apology, Miss Cole. But Alexander barely heard her. He was watching Megan hold his son, watching Liam cling to the woman who'd become essential to both of them in just 3 weeks, and realizing that his carefully controlled world was about to get very, very complicated. Because you couldn't hire love, couldn't negotiate it or control it or fit it into a business plan. You could only surrender to it and hope it didn't destroy you. And Alexander Hayes was very much afraid he was already lost. The penthouse was silent at 2 a.m. when Alexander heard footsteps in the hallway. He'd been staring at his bedroom ceiling for hours, replaying the moment Liam had spoken, unable to process the reality of it. His son had a voice. After 6 years of silence, impossibility had become possible. He found Megan in the kitchen, still wearing the emerald dress, staring at a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She'd insisted on staying after the gala, worried about Liam after such an emotional breakthrough. Alexander had set her up in the guest room, but clearly neither of them could sleep. "Can't stop thinking about it either?" Alexander asked quietly. Megan startled, then relaxed when she saw him. He spoke. After 6 years, he just spoke. "Because of you." Alexander moved closer, his heart pounding. "You gave him that." "I didn't do anything special, I just listened to what he wasn't saying." Megan's hands wrapped around her mug. "But now I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of this being temporary, of him regressing, of—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "Of failing him like I failed Emma." Alexander sat across from her, the marble island between them like a barrier they both needed and resented. "Tell me about Emma. Not the official report, the truth." For a long moment, Megan said nothing. Then quietly, "She was 7. Selective mutism following severe trauma. Her father had been abusive before he went to prison, and Emma hadn't spoken in 2 years. Her mother, Sarah, was so desperate for help. And I thought I could fix everything. What happened? Emma was making progress. Slowly, but steadily. She'd started communicating through drawings like Liam. I thought we were close to a breakthrough." Megan's eyes were distant, lost in memory. "Then one night Sarah called me in a panic. Emma had locked herself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out. Sarah thought she heard crying. I told her—" Megan's voice cracked. "I told her to give Emma space, that forcing the door would undo months of trust building." Alexander felt cold dread pool in his stomach. Megan. Emma had found her mother's sleeping pills. By the time Sarah broke down the door, it was too late. She was 7 years old, and she died because I told her mother to wait. "That's not your fault. A 7-year-old taking pills. I missed the signs of her deteriorating mental state. I was so focused on the mutism that I didn't see the depression underneath. Sarah trusted me, and I let her daughter die." Tears streamed down Megan's face. The official report said it was accidental, that Emma didn't understand what she was taking. But I know better. I failed her. Alexander moved around the island, unable to maintain distance while she fell apart. "So you stopped being Dr. Cole and became just Megan. Erased your entire professional life. I couldn't practice anymore. Every time I saw a child, I saw Emma. Every decision felt like life or death. I was so paralyzed by fear that I became useless." She looked up at him, her gray eyes devastated. "And now Liam's speaking, and all I can think is, what if I miss something again? What if my fear or my guilt or my trauma causes me to fail him too?" "Then you fail," Alexander said, echoing his words from weeks ago. "But you fail while trying, not while hiding. You say that now. But when I inevitably let you down, you won't. You don't know that." "No, I don't." Alexander reached for her hand, his fingers curling around hers. "But I know that Liam spoke for the first time tonight because of you. I know that you've given him more progress in 3 weeks than specialists achieved in 6 years. And I know that perfection isn't what my son needs. He needs someone who shows up, who tries, who loves him without conditions. You do all of that." Megan's fingers tightened around his. "I'm terrified of how much I care about him. About both of you. This was supposed to be simple. Help Liam, keep my distance. But somewhere along the way you both became—" She stopped, unable to finish. "Essential," Alexander supplied quietly. "You became essential. To Liam. To me." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither had intended but couldn't deny. Alexander saw the moment Megan recognized it too, the way her breath caught, her eyes widening slightly. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Probably. You're my client. There are ethical boundaries. You're not practicing psychology. Those rules don't apply." Alexander. His name on her lips sent heat through his veins. He stood, pulling her gently to her feet, his hands framing her face. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Tell me this is all one-sided, and I'll walk away right now." Megan's eyes searched his face, and Alexander saw the war happening behind them. Fear, longing, hope, desperation. "I can't," she breathed. "I can't tell you that." The kiss was inevitable. Soft at first, questioning, giving her time to pull away. But Megan didn't pull away. She melted into him with a small sound that destroyed Alexander's control. His hand slid into her hair and hers gripped his shirt. And for one perfect moment, the world narrowed to just them. Two broken people finding something whole in each other. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling for you, Megan Cole. The waitress, the doctor, the woman who's afraid and brave and impossible. All of you." "This is crazy," Megan whispered. "We barely know each other. I know you love my son. I know you stand up to my mother. I know you'd rather work minimum wage than compromise your principles. I know you carry guilt that's not yours to carry, and I know you're the strongest person I've ever met." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Tell me that's not enough to start with." Megan's smile was tentative but real. "You're very persuasive for a CEO. I learned from the best. You negotiated a better deal than most of my business partners." The moment of levity broke some of the tension, and Megan laughed softly. But then her expression turned serious. "If we do this, and I'm not saying we should, we have to be careful. Liam comes first, always. If this affects him negatively, then we stop." "I agree." Alexander's thumb traced her cheekbone. "But I think Liam would be happy to see his father happy for the first time in years. And I think he already loves you enough that having you in our lives permanently would be a dream come true for him." "Permanently?" Megan's eyes widened. "Alexander, that's too soon, I know. But I've learned not to waste time on things that don't matter and to fight for things that do. You matter, Megan, more than I expected, more than I planned for." He smiled ruefully. "Turns out the heart doesn't care about business plans." Before Megan could respond, they heard a small sound from the hallway. Both turned to see Liam standing there in his pajamas, his stuffed duck tucked under one arm, his eyes moving between them with something that looked like contentment. "Meg," he said clearly, his voice small but certain. "Dad. Here." Alexander's throat tightened. 2 words. His son had said 2 words, and they were the people standing in this kitchen at 2 a.m., falling for each other despite every reason not to. "Yes, buddy," Alexander said, his voice rough. "We're both here." Liam walked forward and took Megan's hand, then Alexander's, bringing them together. The gesture was simple but profound, his silent way of saying he approved that this strange new family configuration felt right to him. "Okay," Liam whispered, and Alexander realized his son was giving them permission, blessing this complicated, messy, beautiful thing developing between them. Megan looked at Alexander over Liam's head, and in her eyes he saw surrender. Not defeat, but acceptance of something inevitable. They were in this together now. All 3 of them. A billionaire with control issues, a brilliant doctor hiding from her past, and a 6-year-old boy finding his voice. It was unconventional, improbable, possibly doomed. But as Liam led them both toward the living room, chattering softly about his drawings, Alexander realized that sometimes the best things in life were the ones you couldn't plan for, the ones that arrived disguised as disasters and revealed themselves as miracles. And as Megan smiled at him over their joined hands, Alexander Hayes, who'd thought his heart had died when his wife walked out, discovered it had only been waiting for the right person to bring it back to life. 3 months later, spring arrived in Seattle with cherry blossoms and rain-washed sunshine. Alexander stood at his office window, phone pressed to his ear, listening to his lawyer explain why Victoria Hayes was contesting his plans. "Your mother is arguing that Miss Cole's lack of proper credentials makes her unsuitable for a permanent role in Liam's life. She's threatening to petition for partial custody unless you," and I quote, "come to your senses." Alexander's jaw clenched. Since the gala, Victoria had launched a quiet campaign against Megan, whispers at country clubs, concerns raised to board members, but custody threats were new and dangerous. She has no legal standing. Claire signed away her rights, but Victoria is Liam's grandmother. If she can prove Miss Cole's presence is somehow harmful to the child's development, a judge might consider supervised visitation rights for Victoria. The implication was clear. His mother would use any weapon available, including the courts, to maintain control over the Hayes family legacy. Thanks for the warning. Alexander ended the call just as his office door opened. His assistant appeared, looking nervous. Sir, there's a Sarah Mitchell here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent. She says it's about Megan Cole. Alexander's blood ran cold. Sarah Mitchell, Emma's mother, the woman whose daughter had died under Megan's care. Send her in. Sarah Mitchell was 40-something, with tired eyes and gray-streaked hair. She clutched a worn folder and looked around Alexander's executive office with obvious discomfort. Mr. Hayes, thank you for seeing me. Mrs. Mitchell, what brings you here? I heard you're dating Megan. Sarah's voice was direct. I needed to warn you about what she's capable of. Alexander forced himself to remain calm. I know about Emma. Megan told me. Did she tell you that she convinced me to leave my daughter alone when Emma needed me most? That her advice killed my child? The words hung in the air like poison. Alexander wanted to defend Megan, but he needed to hear this, needed to understand the full truth. I know Megan feels responsible for Emma's death. The official report ruled it accidental. The official report was wrong. Sarah opened her folder with shaking hands. I found these in Emma's room after. They're letters Emma wrote but never sent. To Megan. She handed Alexander several pages covered in a child's handwriting. Alexander's hands trembled as he read them. Dear Dr. Cole, I'm scared all the time. The bad thoughts won't go away. I don't know how to tell Mommy without making her sadder. Maybe if I was gone, everyone would be happier. Another page. Dr. Cole, I tried to tell you with my drawings, but I don't think you understood. The black scribbles mean the darkness inside me. It's getting bigger. Alexander felt sick. These were cries for help that Megan had missed. Or had she? There's more, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. After Emma died, I blamed Megan. I said terrible things. But last month, I found Emma's journal hidden in her closet. And I learned the truth. She handed Alexander another page, and his world tilted. It was Emma's journal entry from the week before she died. Doctor, Cole asked me about the pills today. She knew something was wrong. She kept asking if I was thinking about hurting myself. I lied. I told her no because I didn't want her to tell Mommy and make Mommy cry more. Dr. Cole looked so worried. She made me promise to call her anytime, day or night. She gave me her personal number, but I can't call. I can't tell anyone about the darkness. She knew, Sarah whispered. Megan knew Emma was struggling. She asked the right questions. She gave Emma every opportunity to be honest. But my daughter lied because she was trying to protect me. Sarah's voice broke. Megan didn't fail Emma. I did. I was so focused on my own pain after my ex-husband went to jail that I didn't see how much my daughter was suffering. Alexander's mind reeled. Why are you telling me this? Because Megan destroyed her entire career over guilt that wasn't hers to carry. Because I said things in my grief that made her believe she was responsible. And because Sarah pulled out one final paper, this one recent, printed from a computer. Someone named Victoria Hayes contacted me last week. She offered me $50,000 to testify that Megan was negligent in Emma's care, to help her build a case to separate Megan from her grandson. Rage, white hot and pure, flooded through Alexander. His mother had gone after Megan's greatest vulnerability, weaponizing a dead child to maintain her control. I assume you refused, Alexander said, his voice deadly calm. Of course I refused. I came here to make sure you know the truth. Megan Cole is a brilliant therapist who lost a patient despite doing everything right. She doesn't deserve to lose another chance at happiness because of my grief or your mother's manipulation. After Sarah left, Alexander sat in his office, staring at Emma's letters. Megan had asked the right questions, had given Emma every tool to reach out for help. But she'd been working with a child who was protecting her mother, and in the end, that love had been fatal. Megan hadn't failed Emma. Circumstances had. But Megan had taken all the blame, destroyed her career, and built a life around penance for a sin she hadn't committed. Alexander grabbed his phone. There was only one way to end this. Only one way to protect both Megan and Liam from Victoria's machinations. Mother, he said when Victoria answered, we need to talk. Now. 90 minutes later, Alexander walked into his mother's Laurelhurst mansion with Sarah Mitchell's folder under his arm. Victoria was waiting in her sitting room, perfectly composed. Alexander, to what do I owe this unexpected visit? The game's end now. Alexander threw the folder on the coffee table. Sarah Mitchell came to see me today. She told me about your offer. Victoria's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened on her teacup. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. You tried to pay Emma's mother to testify against Megan. You were willing to weaponize a child's death to break us up. I was trying to protect you. That woman is clearly unstable, walking away from her career, lying about her credentials. She didn't lie, she simplified. And she walked away because she has a conscience, something you clearly lack. Victoria stood, her composure cracking. I will not apologize for protecting my family. That waitress is completely unsuitable for you. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone else. I want Megan. And if you ever threaten her again, if you ever contact Sarah Mitchell or file custody motions or spread one more whisper about Megan in your social circles, I will cut you out of my life completely. No contact with Liam, no family dinners, no Hayes Industries board seat, nothing. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Alexander's voice was steel. I've already drafted the paperwork removing you from the board. One signature and it's done. The only reason I haven't signed yet is because, despite everything, you're Liam's grandmother. But blood doesn't give you the right to destroy the people I love. Victoria sank back into her chair, suddenly looking older. I only wanted what was best for you. No, you wanted control. But I'm not a boy anymore. And my son deserves better than a grandmother who sees him as a disappointment. So here's what's going to happen. You will call Sarah Mitchell and apologize. You will withdraw any custody threats. And you will accept Megan as part of this family, or you will have no family at all. For a long moment, Victoria said nothing. Then quietly, she really means that much to you? She means everything. She and Liam are my entire world. And I won't let you or anyone threaten that. Alexander left without waiting for a response. He had one more stop to make. He found Megan at Green Lake Park with Liam, both of them laughing as the boy chased ducks and shouted their names. Liam's vocabulary had exploded in recent months. Simple sentences now, full of wonder and joy. The specialists called it miraculous. Alexander called it love. Meg, Liam shouted when he saw his father approaching. Dad, look, duck. I see, buddy. Alexander scooped his son up, then turned to Megan. We need to talk. Her smile faded at his serious tone. What happened? Alexander told her everything. Sarah's visit, the letters, Victoria's manipulation. He watched Megan's face cycle through shock, grief, and something that looked like liberation. She asked the right questions. Megan whispered, staring at the folder. Emma knew she could call me. I gave her every tool. And she chose to protect her mother instead. Because she was 7 and she loved her mom, and that love made her lie. Alexander took Megan's hands. You didn't fail her, Megan. The situation failed you both, and you've been carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. Tears streamed down Megan's face. I destroyed my entire life over this. Then rebuild it. With us. With Liam. With me. Alexander pulled a small box from his pocket and Megan's eyes widened. I know it's fast, I know we're complicated, but I also know that life is short and love is rare, and when you find someone who makes you better, you don't let them go. Alexander, marry me, Megan Cole, be Liam's mother, be my partner. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you deserve all the happiness you've been denying yourself. Yes, Liam shouted before Megan could respond. Meg, stay! Meg, stay forever! Megan laughed through her tears, looking between the two Hayes men who'd somehow become her entire world. You're both completely crazy. Crazy about you, Alexander said, and slipped the ring onto her finger. The wedding happened 6 months later in the same park where Megan had first made Liam look at her. Small and intimate with only the people who mattered. Sarah Mitchell attended, having become an unexpected friend to Megan through their shared grief and healing. Victoria Hayes stood in the back, her expression carefully neutral but her eyes slightly wet when Liam walked Megan down the aisle, proudly announcing to everyone, "My Meg, My new mom. As Alexander kissed his bride beneath cherry blossoms, Liam between them, he realized that miracles weren't one-time events. They were daily choices. To love despite fear, to try despite failure, to believe despite evidence that hope was foolish. Megan Cole had taught him that. His brilliant, broken, beautiful wife who'd been hiding her light and had finally let it shine again. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I love you too. Both of you. Forever. And as spring rain began to fall, soft and perfect, the Hayes family stood together beneath a rainbow, just like in Liam's drawing from that first impossible night. Some stories ended in tragedy, but some, the rare, precious ones, ended in joy. In second chances and new beginnings in love that was strong enough to heal even the deepest wounds. This was one of those stories, and it was just beginning.
The billionaire mocked arrogantly, "I'll give you $1 million if you serve me in Arabic." But the waitress's fluent reply left everyone speechless. Your support means everything. Like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep sharing stories like this. Let's start today's story. Table 7 needs attention. The Arab billionaire. Samantha Adams nodded at her manager, straightening her red apron before approaching the corner table. Working at Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, meant dealing with the world's elite. Movie stars, politicians, and billionaires who treated the staff like furniture. But it paid the bills, and after what happened at the UN 2 years ago, anonymity was exactly what she needed. The man at table 7 radiated wealth and power, impeccably dressed in a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. He lounged in his chair like a king on a throne. His dark beard was perfectly groomed, framing full lips curved in perpetual amusement. 2 other men in similar attire flanked him, but they were clearly subordinates. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Lumiere. May I get you started with something to drink?" Samantha's professional smile never faltered, despite the way his eyes appraised her like merchandise. Instead of answering, he turned to his companions and said something in Arabic, triggering laughter from the group. Samantha stood patiently, her face betraying nothing. She'd dealt with worse. "A bottle of your 1982 Lafite Rothschild," he finally said, his accent subtle but distinctive. "And perhaps you could recommend something special?" His eyes lingered on her name tag, then traveled back to her face. "The chef's tasting menu is exceptional tonight, featuring a Wagyu beef course that's not on the regular menu," she replied smoothly. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "I'm not interested in what everyone else gets. I'm Karim Al-Fahad. Perhaps you've heard of me?" She hadn't, but nodded politely anyway. "I own the Falcon Hotel Group." He waited for recognition to dawn. When it didn't, irritation flickered across his face. "I just acquired the building across the street. Soon, this whole block will be mine." "Congratulations, Mr. Al-Fahad. I'll fetch that wine for you." Samantha turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Wait." His tone had changed, carrying an edge of challenge. The restaurant had grown quieter, as if sensing the brewing spectacle. "I have a proposition for you." His companions smirked, exchanging glances. Samantha's stomach tightened, but her expression remained neutral. "Sir?" Karim reached into his jacket and withdrew a sleek leather wallet. With deliberate slowness, he extracted a check and placed it on the table. $1 million. His voice carried just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "If you can take my dinner order in Arabic." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the pianist in the corner had paused. "That's inappropriate, sir," Samantha said quietly. "Is it?" Karim's smile widened. "I'm simply appreciating culture. Most Americans only speak one language, yes? Prove me wrong. $1 million. He tapped the check with a manicured finger. "Just a few sentences in Arabic. Or is that too difficult for a waitress?" The way he said waitress made it sound like the lowest profession imaginable. Heat crept up Samantha's neck, but not from embarrassment, from anger. He leaned back, triumphant at her silence. As I thought. Well, the wine then. أود تقديم طلب الطعام سيدي. ماذا ترغب أن تأكل هذا المساء؟ Samantha's Arabic flowed perfectly, her pronunciation flawless. I would like to take your order, sir. What would you like to eat this evening? Karim froze, his smug expression evaporating. His companions looked equally stunned. She continued in Arabic, her voice gaining strength. قد أقترح لحم الواغيو المتميز لدينا. إنه مطهي على نار هادئة لمدة 8 ساعات ومتبل بالأعشاب المستوردة من المغرب. May I suggest our signature Wagyu beef? It's slow cooked for 8 hours and seasoned with herbs imported from Morocco. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every eye was on their table. Karim recovered first, responding in Arabic. حيث تعلمت التحدث بهذه اللهجة المثالية. Where did you learn to speak with such perfect dialect? جامعة هارفارد. قسم اللغويات. تخصصت في اللغات السامية. Harvard University, Linguistics Department. I specialized in Semitic languages. Samantha switched back to English. Will that be all, Mr. Al-Fahad? Or would you like to hear my Farsi as well? A flush crawled up Karim's neck. You speak Farsi too? And Urdu, French, Russian, and enough Mandarin to get by. She gestured to the check. Will you be paying that now or after your meal? The nearby diners erupted in whispers. One woman actually applauded. Something shifted in Karim's eyes, irritation giving way to genuine curiosity. Harvard linguistics, yet you're working as a waitress. Career changes happen. Samantha's smile tightened. Now about that wine. As she turned, Karim called after her. The check is yours. I'm a man of my word. She paused, then looked over her shoulder. Keep your money, Mr. Al-Fahad. I don't need your charity. The words tasted sweet as she walked away, head high. Behind her, Karim Al-Fahad stared in disbelief, for perhaps the first time in his adult life, completely at a loss for words. Karim couldn't take his eyes off her. The waitress, Samantha, according to her name tag, moved through the restaurant with quiet efficiency. Nothing in her demeanor suggested she was anything other than what she appeared to be. Yet she'd just spoken to him in impeccable Arabic, with a regional accent he typically only heard in diplomatic circles. Should I have security look into her? Ahmad, his head of security, murmured beside him. Karim waved the suggestion away. No, but find out everything you can. His reputation for thorough research was legendary. No deal was signed, no property acquired, without exhaustive background checks on all involved parties. Harvard linguistics to serving tables, he mused, swirling the ruby-red wine in his glass. There's a story there. The truth was, Karim was bored. Building his hotel empire from the ruins of his father's business had consumed the past 10 years of his life. Now, at 32, he'd achieved everything he'd set out to do. The New York expansion was almost complete, his bid for the historic Drake building nearly secured. Success had become predictable, but this woman, she was a mystery. And mysteries were rare in his world. When she returned with their appetizers, Karim observed her more carefully. Subtle details he'd missed before, the way she carried herself, her perfect posture, the slight callus on her right middle finger, a writer's mark. Her hands moved with deliberate grace, placing each dish precisely. These are compliments of the chef, she said, presenting delicate plates of seared scallops with truffle foam. Please thank him for me. Karim maintained eye contact longer than necessary. And I apologize for my behavior earlier. It was ungentlemanly. Her expression revealed nothing. Enjoy your meal, sir. As she walked away, Ahmad leaned forward. I have preliminary information, he said quietly. Samantha Adams, 24 years old. Massachusetts driver's license shows a Cambridge address until 2 years ago. Then nothing until she appears in New York, 14 months ago. Current address is in Queens. That's unusually light for you, Karim noted. It's unusually difficult information to find, Ahmad replied, almost as if her records have been professionally scrubbed. Karim finished the thought, his interest deepening. In his experience, people who erased their pasts had something significant to hide. The meal progressed, each course more exquisite than the last, but Karim barely noticed the food. His attention remained fixed on Samantha, watching her interaction with other tables, noting how she shifted subtly between different personas to match each customer's expectations. When she brought their dessert, a deconstructed pistachio baklava with gold leaf, Karim decided to try again. "Ms. Adams, I wonder if I might ask you something." Her professional smile remained firmly in place. "Of course, Mr. Al-Fahad. Why would someone with your qualifications choose this profession?" He kept his tone conversational, genuinely curious rather than condescending. "Perhaps I enjoy it," she replied simply. "Do you?" A ghost of a real smile touched her lips. "Some days more than others. And today. Today has had its challenges." She glanced meaningfully at him. Karim found himself smiling in return. A genuine smile, not the practiced expression he used for business dealings. "The check still stands, $1 million, no strings attached." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Why?" "Because I made a bet and lost. I'm a businessman, Ms. Adams. I honor my contracts." "It wasn't a contract." "It was a joke at my expense. Then consider it compensation for my rudeness." She studied him for a long moment. "Donate it to the International Refugee Education Fund. They do good work." Before he could respond, a commotion at the restaurant entrance drew their attention. A tall man with silver hair in an expensive suit was arguing with the maître d'. Even from across the room, Karim could see the man was intoxicated. Samantha's entire demeanor changed in an instant. Her spine stiffened, and color drained from her face. Without another word to Karim, she turned and walked swiftly toward the kitchen. Karim watched with interest as the maître d' finally allowed the man inside. He stumbled slightly, scanning the restaurant with bloodshot eyes before focusing on Samantha's retreating back. "Sam!" His voice carried across the dining room. "Samantha Adams!" She froze momentarily, then continued walking without looking back. The man started after her, but was intercepted by the restaurant manager. "What's happening?" Faisal, Karim's other dinner companion, asked. "I'm not sure," Karim murmured, "but I intend to find out." He signaled Ahmad with a subtle gesture. His security chief rose smoothly and approached the developing situation, identifying himself to the manager with a discreet flash of credentials. After a brief conversation, Ahmad guided the intoxicated man toward the exit. By the time Samantha returned to their table, the incident was over. If not for the tightness around her eyes, she might have appeared completely composed. "Is everything all right?" Karim asked. "Yes. Will there be anything else, gentlemen?" Karim hesitated, then decided against pressing the matter. "Just the check, the real one," he added with a small smile. As she processed his payment, Karim made a decision. He wrote a different amount on the tip line, $10,000, and signed with a flourish. "This is too much," she said when she saw it. "Consider it an investment." "In what?" "A future conversation." He handed her his business card. "Call me if you ever decide you want more than this." Her eyes flashed. "Not all of us measure success by the size of our bank accounts, Mr. Al-Fahad." "No. What's your measure, then?" She returned his card. "Integrity, something money can't buy." As she walked away, Karim felt something unfamiliar stir within him. Respect mingled with fascination. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had spoken to him that way. "Sir," Ahmad said, returning to the table, "you should know something about that man." "Who was he?" "Victor Caldwell, former State Department official." Ahmad leaned closer. "And according to what I could find, Samantha Adams once worked directly for him. You need to leave, now. Lisa, Samantha's roommate, stood in the doorway of their tiny Queens apartment, arms crossed. Behind her, suitcases were already packed. What's going on? Samantha had just finished an exhausting double shift, her encounter with Karim Al-Fahad overshadowed by Victor Caldwell's unexpected appearance. She'd hoped to come home, take a hot shower and collapse into bed. 2 men were asking about you in the building. Lisa's voice trembled slightly. Showing your picture. Dark suits, earpieces. They didn't look like police. Cold dread washed over Samantha. Did they see you? No, Mrs. Petrova from 3B warned me. Sam, you promised when you moved in that whatever you were running from wouldn't follow you here. I know, I'm sorry. Samantha moved quickly, grabbing the emergency bag she kept in her closet, passport, cash, burner phone, and the small gun she'd hoped never to use again. Is this about your old job, the one you never talk about? Lisa demanded. Samantha paused, considering how much to reveal. Lisa deserved something after being such a good friend. I used to work as a translator. I overheard something I shouldn't have. People died. She zipped up the bag. That's all I can tell you. Lisa's expression softened. Where will you go? Better if you don't know. Nah, Samantha hugged her friend tightly. I'll send money for rent until you find a new roommate. Forget the rent. Just be safe. 20 minutes later, Samantha was in a taxi heading toward Brooklyn. She ditched her phone after sending one text to Marcus, her only contact from her previous life. He would understand the coded message, weather turning bad, seeking new climate. The past was catching up to her, just as she'd feared. Victor showing up drunk at the restaurant wasn't a coincidence. After 2 years of looking over her shoulder, she'd grown complacent, and now she would pay the price. The taxi dropped her at a busy intersection, and she walked 3 blocks before hailing another to throw off any potential tail. She checked into a small hotel using one of her alternate IDs, paid cash for 3 nights, and finally allowed herself to breathe. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Samantha tried to piece together what had happened. Victor appearing the same night as Karim Al-Fahad couldn't be coincidental. But what was the connection? The Al-Fahad name wasn't one she recalled from her time at the UN or State Department. Her phone buzzed. The burner. Marcus. Mutual friend asking questions, not alone. Safe house compromise. Meet at the museum. Noon tomorrow. Samantha closed her eyes, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her. Sleep would have to wait. She opened her laptop and began searching for information on Karim Al-Fahad. The publicly available data painted a clear picture. 32 years old, born to a moderately successful Saudi businessman and an American mother, educated at Oxford, inherited his father's struggling hotel business at 22 when both parents died in a plane crash. Over the next decade, he transformed one mid-tier hotel into the Falcon Hotel Group, a global luxury chain with properties on 5 continents. What interested Samantha more was what she couldn't find. No scandals, no political affiliations, no suspicious business dealings that might connect to her past work. By all appearances, Karim Al-Fahad was exactly what he claimed to be, a successful businessman with an arrogant streak. A knock at her door jolted her from her research. Samantha froze, hand moving to the gun in her bag. No one knew she was here. Ms. Adams? A male voice muffled through the door. I apologize for the late hour. She recognized the voice. Ahmad, Karim's security chief. How had they found her so quickly? I'm not here to harm you, he continued. Mr. Al-Fahad would like to speak with you. It's important. Give me one reason why I should trust you. Samantha kept her voice steady, gun now in hand, because Victor Caldwell was found dead an hour ago. And you're about to be framed for his murder. The world tilted beneath her feet. Victor dead. Impossible. If you don't believe me, check the news, Ahmad said. Samantha grabbed her phone, finding a breaking news alert. Former State Department official found dead in Manhattan hotel. She approached the door cautiously. How did you find me? We followed the men who were following you. That made a twisted kind of sense. She peered through the peephole. Ahmad stood alone, hands visible and empty. Mr. Al-Fahad is waiting in the car, he said. He believes he knows why this is happening, and he wants to help. Why would he help me? Because his parents' plane crash wasn't an accident, and he believes the same people who killed them are now coming for you. Samantha's mind raced. The connection she'd been missing, it wasn't about her time at the UN. It was something earlier, from her father's diplomatic career. My father, she said suddenly, David Adams. He worked with the Saudi royal family in the 1990s. Ahmad nodded. He saved Karim's father during an attempted coup. Tonight, Mr. Al-Fahad realized who you were. The pieces were falling into place with dizzying speed. Her father's mysterious death 5 years ago ruled a heart attack despite his excellent health. The classified files she'd discovered at the State Department, the conversation she'd overheard that had forced her into hiding. I need answers, she said finally. Mr. Al-Fahad has some, Ahmad replied, and together you might find the rest. Samantha made her decision. She gathered her bag, tucked the gun into her waistband, and opened the door. Outside, a sleek black Bentley waited at the curb. As Ahmad opened the rear door, Samantha caught sight of Karim watching her, his expression grave. Gone was the arrogant businessman from the restaurant, replaced by someone altogether more dangerous. Ms. Adams, he said as she slid into the seat beside him, I believe we have a common enemy. And who would that be? His eyes met hers, dark with controlled fury. The same people who murdered our fathers and are now trying to tie up loose ends, starting with Victor Caldwell and ending with us. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying Samantha into yet another uncertain future, this time with the most unlikely of allies. We need to move quickly. Karim's penthouse overlooked Central Park, the glittering cityscape a stark contrast to the tension filling the room. They'll realize you've disappeared soon enough. Samantha stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed protectively over her chest. I'm still waiting for you to tell me who they are. Karim poured 2 glasses of scotch, offering one to her. When she hesitated, he took a deliberate sip from her glass before handing it over. Trust issues, understandable, given the circumstances. She accepted the drink but didn't taste it. My father, Ibrahim Al-Fahad, wasn't just a hotelier, Karim began, settling into a leather armchair. He was an intelligence asset for the American government, specifically working with the CIA's Middle Eastern division throughout the 1990s. Samantha's eyes widened. My father was stationed in Riyadh during that time. Exactly. David Adams, cultural attaché. At least that was his cover. Karim's gaze was steady. He was actually CIA, wasn't he? She remained silent for a long moment before nodding. Yes, but I didn't know that until after his death. Our fathers worked together to prevent a coup that would have destabilized the entire region. Your father saved mine during an assassination attempt in 1998. Karim pulled out his phone, showing her a faded photograph, 2 younger men standing together, smiling. One was clearly Ibrahim Al-Fahad, the other David Adams. I've never seen this, Samantha whispered, taking the phone. They became friends, not just assets and handlers. When my father married my American mother, your father was best man at their wedding. Karim's voice softened. After the coup attempt failed, my father was relocated to London, where I was born. We returned to Saudi Arabia only after things had stabilized, but he maintained his connection to American intelligence. And this relates to Victor Caldwell how? Samantha asked, handing back the phone. Caldwell was State Department, but he had deep CIA connections. When my parents died in that plane crash 10 years ago, he was the one who handled the American side of the investigation, which concluded it was an accident, Samantha noted. Yes, except it wasn't. Kareem's jaw tightened. The official story was mechanical failure, but I've spent years gathering evidence that the plane was sabotaged by the same faction that attempted the coup years earlier. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Kareem pulled a leather portfolio from his desk, spreading documents across the table. Bank transfers, encrypted communications, flight maintenance records that mysteriously disappeared from official reports. Samantha scanned the papers, her translator's eye quickly picking up inconsistencies in the Arabic documents. These maintenance logs have been altered. Yes, and I believe Victor Caldwell was involved in the cover-up. Samantha's mind raced. When I worked at the UN as a translator, I overheard Caldwell discussing something called Operation Sandstorm with Saudi officials. I didn't understand the significance at the time, but when I mentioned it to him later, he became threatening. What exactly did you hear? Kareem leaned forward. Names, dates. Something about Phase 2 being initiated. She swallowed hard. 2 weeks later, classified documents appeared in my secure diplomatic pouch. Files that implicated Caldwell and others in selling intelligence to Saudi extremists. The same extremists who tried to overthrow the government my father helped protect, Kareem said grimly. I took the documents to my superior. 3 days later, he died in a robbery gone wrong. That's when I ran. Samantha's hands trembled slightly. I changed my identity. Disappeared. I thought I was being paranoid until your father died of a convenient heart attack. Kareem finished softly. Tears pricked her eyes. How did you know? Because that's their signature. My mother's brother died the same way 6 months after my parents. Clean, untraceable. Samantha finally took a long swallow of scotch. So, Victor's death wasn't your fault. It was a message. They're cleaning house, eliminating everyone who might connect them to Operation Sandstorm. Kareem's eyes met hers, including us. Why now, after all this time? Because the final phase is approaching. Kareem pointed to a document showing a complex transaction. They've been siphoning billions from Saudi sovereign wealth funds for years, using shell companies and cryptocurrency to hide the money. Next week, those funds are scheduled to be transferred to accounts controlled by former Saudi intelligence officials, the same ones who orchestrated the coup attempt 25 years ago. And they're planning to use that money for what exactly? To finance something big. Something that would destabilize not just Saudi Arabia, but the entire Middle East. Kareem's expression darkened. I've been tracking their movements, their purchases, weapons, mercenaries. They're planning a coordinated strike across multiple countries. Samantha felt the blood drain from her face. How could they possibly pull that off without intelligence agencies knowing? Because they have allies inside those agencies, including Caldwell. The implications were staggering. Samantha paced the room, mind working furiously. We need to take this to the authorities. And tell them what? That a Saudi hotelier and an American waitress have uncovered an international conspiracy. Kareem's laugh was bitter. We'd be dismissed as paranoid, or silenced before we could speak. Then what do you suggest? We find concrete proof linking them to Caldwell's murder and Operation Sandstorm. Evidence so irrefutable that even their allies in government can't ignore it. And where exactly do we find this proof? Kareem's smile was dangerous. The annual Falcon Charity Gala is tomorrow night at my flagship hotel. Mohammed bin Rashid will be there. The man, I believe, orchestrated my parents' death and this entire operation. You want to confront a terrorist at your own charity event? No, Karim replied smoothly. "I want to steal the evidence from his hotel suite while he's at my charity event." Samantha stared at him in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Deadly serious. His security will be downstairs watching him. His suite will be vulnerable." "That's insane. Even if we could access his room, what makes you think he'd bring incriminating evidence with him?" "Because I made sure he would." Karim's eyes gleamed. "I've spent 10 years building this hotel empire for one purpose: to get close to these men, to earn their trust, to lure them into my territory." The realization dawned on Samantha. This whole time, your business, your success, was a means to an end. Karim's voice hardened. "Justice for my parents." Samantha felt a newfound respect mingling with apprehension. She'd misjudged him. Beneath the arrogant billionaire exterior was someone driven by the same need for truth that had consumed her life. "I still think this is crazy," she said finally. "Do you have a better plan?" She didn't. "Besides," Karim added, "you speak 6 languages and managed to disappear completely for 2 years. I suspect breaking into a hotel room isn't beyond your capabilities." Despite everything, Samantha found herself smiling. "I never said I couldn't do it. I just said it was crazy." "So you'll help?" Their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Two people from different worlds, connected by shared tragedy and a dangerous mission. "Yes," she said finally, "but we do this my way. Clean, professional, with contingency plans for when, not if, something goes wrong." Karim nodded, respect evident in his gaze. "Agreed." Ahmad entered the room, his expression grave. "Sir, there's been a development. The police are at Miss Adams's apartment. They've issued a warrant for her arrest in connection with Victor Caldwell's murder." "Faster than I expected," Karim murmured. Samantha felt the walls closing in. "I need to leave the country." "No," Karim said firmly. "That's exactly what they want. To flush you out, make you run. The moment you hit an airport or border crossing, they'll have you." "So I'm trapped?" "No," Karim corrected. "You're protected. For now. This penthouse has a private elevator and security measures that would impress the Pentagon. No one gets in without my authorization." He approached her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something uniquely his own. "One night. Tomorrow we get the evidence, and then I'll have my jet ready to take us wherever we need to go." Samantha felt a strange flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with fear. "Us." "Gee, I started this hunt 10 years ago," Karim said quietly. "I intend to see it through to the end." The intensity in his eyes stirred something in her, something she'd thought long buried beneath layers of trauma and survival instinct. "One night," she agreed, stepping back slightly to break the tension. "But I'm not wearing a ball gown to commit felony breaking and entering." Karim's smile returned, transforming his face. "Actually, that's exactly what you'll be wearing. The perfect disguise is often hidden in plain sight." For the first time in years, Samantha felt a spark of hope amidst the danger. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. The sapphire gown shimmered under the chandeliers of the Falcon Hotel's grand ballroom. Samantha adjusted the delicate mask covering the upper half of her face, grateful for the anonymity it provided at this masquerade charity gala. From across the room, Karim caught her eye, raising his champagne glass slightly in acknowledgement. He looked devastating in his tuxedo, his own black mask lending him an air of mystery that suited him perfectly. No one would guess that beneath their elegant exteriors they were planning a high-stakes infiltration. "Remember," Ahmad's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece. "Bin Rashid arrived 10 minutes ago, suite 4208. His security team has 4 men, 2 at the gala, 2 patrolling the executive floor." "Copy that," Samantha murmured, pretending to sip her champagne. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. As host, Karim would keep bin Rashid occupied at the gala. Samantha, introduced as Karim's date, a French art dealer named Isabelle Laurent, would excuse herself, then use the security credentials Ahmad had prepared to access the executive floor. "Enjoying yourself, darling?" Karim appeared at her side, placing a possessive hand at the small of her back. "Immensely," she replied, affecting a slight French accent. "Your charity events are always so stimulating." "Wait until the after-party," he murmured, his lips close to her ear. To onlookers, they appeared to be sharing an intimate moment. In reality, he was updating her. Bin Rashid brought his entire entourage. "Security is higher than we anticipated. Nothing I can't handle." Her confidence wasn't entirely feigned. The skills that had once made her an exceptional diplomatic translator, attention to detail, quick thinking, adaptability, had served her well during her 2 years on the run. Of that, I have no doubt. Something in his tone made her look up sharply. Their eyes met through their masks, and the genuine admiration she saw there caught her off guard. Mr. Al-Fahad, a heavily accented voice, interrupted them. "A magnificent event, as always." Karim turned smoothly, his demeanor shifting to gracious host. "Mr. bin Rashid, I'm honored you could attend." Mohammed bin Rashid was a striking figure, tall and lean, with silver hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His eyes, however, were cold as they assessed Samantha. "And who is this enchanting creature?" "Isabelle Laurent," Karim said, squeezing her hand in warning. "A dear friend from Paris." "Enchanté," Samantha murmured, extending her hand. Bin Rashid brought it to his lips. "The pleasure is mine, mademoiselle." Something about his touch made her skin crawl, but she maintained her smile. This man had orchestrated the deaths of Karim's parents, possibly her father, and countless others. "Isabelle is curating my new art collection," Karim continued smoothly. "She has an exceptional eye for value." "Indeed," bin Rashid's gaze lingered on her. "Perhaps she might offer her opinion on some pieces I've recently acquired." "Another time, perhaps," Karim intervened. "The auction is about to begin. Would you join me at the main table? You're seated at my right, of course." As they moved away, bin Rashid glanced back at her. There was something in his expression, a flicker of recognition, that sent a chill down her spine. "Now," Ahmad's voice came through the earpiece, "the security shift change is happening. You have 12 minutes. Samantha waited 30 seconds, then made her way toward the exit, pausing to chat briefly with a waiter, establishing her presence in case anyone was watching. Once in the hallway, she moved quickly to the service elevator, swiping the security card Ahmad had provided. The executive floor was silent, the plush carpeting muffling her footsteps. Using the small tablet Ahmad had given her, she tracked the security guard's positions via the hotel's system. 2 red dots moved along the west corridor, heading away from bin Rashid's suite. Perfect. Suite 4208 was secured with both a key card reader and a digital keypad. Ahmad had provided the override codes, assuring her they would work. Samantha held her breath as she entered the sequence, exhaling only when the light turned green and the lock disengaged with a soft click. Bin Rashid's suite was opulent, even by Falcon Hotel standards, a sprawling set of rooms with panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. Samantha moved efficiently, searching for the briefcase Karim had told her to find. Bin Rashid never traveled without it, a custom-made Hermès piece with distinctive gold hardware. She found it in the bedroom, locked inside the closet safe. The override code worked here too, and the safe door swung open to reveal the briefcase. "I've found it," she whispered into her communicator. "Beginning extraction." The briefcase was secured with a biometric lock, fingerprint and retinal scan, normally impossible to bypass, but Ahmad had prepared for this. From her clutch, Samantha removed what looked like a compact mirror, but was actually a specialized electronic device. When placed over the biometric scanner, it cycled through stored patterns, until it found a match. 2 minutes, Ahmad warned in her ear. Guards are completing their rounds. The device beeped softly, and the briefcase clicked open. Inside were several folders and a small external hard drive. Samantha worked quickly, photographing each document with a miniature camera disguised as a lipstick tube, then downloading the contents of the hard drive to a duplicate that would leave no trace of the intrusion. What she saw made her blood run cold. Operation Sandstorm was far worse than they'd imagined. Not just a coup attempt, but a coordinated series of attacks designed to throw the entire region into chaos. The documents contained lists of operatives, financial transactions, weapons caches, and most damning, communications with someone identified only as American Eagle, Caldwell. The evidence was irrefutable. Emails, photos, bank transfers, all linking bin Rashid, Caldwell and others to a conspiracy of staggering proportions. 30 seconds, Ahmad urged. Samantha finished the download, replaced everything exactly as she'd found it, and closed the briefcase. She returned it to the safe, reset the lock, and was halfway to the door when she heard voices in the corridor. Check on the package before rejoining Mr. Bin Rashid. Guards, coming to the suite. Samantha froze, calculating options. The bathroom? Too obvious. Under the bed? Juvenile. The balcony? Possibly, but risky. 42 floors above Manhattan left little margin for error. The voices grew closer. The card reader beeped. In a split-second decision, Samantha slipped behind the heavy floor-length curtains just as the door opened. She controlled her breathing, standing perfectly still as footsteps entered the suite. 2 men speaking Arabic. One checked the safe, a routine security measure. The other moved around the sitting room. Neither approached the curtains, but Samantha's heart hammered as one paused nearby. All secure, one finally said. Let's get back downstairs. The door closed. Samantha waited 30 seconds before emerging, legs slightly shaky from the adrenaline. Status? Ahmad's voice was tense. Mission accomplished, she whispered. Heading back now. The return journey went smoothly. Service elevator down to the mezzanine, then a quick stop in the ladies' room to compose herself before rejoining the gala. Karim found her immediately, his relief evident despite his mask. Everything all right, darling? He asked for the benefit of those nearby. Perfect, she replied, smiling up at him. Though I find myself with a bit of a headache. Perhaps we could leave soon. Of course. He signaled a waiter for champagne. One last toast, and we'll go. As they clinked glasses, Bin Rashid approached again, this time with a stunning woman on his arm. Leaving so soon, Al-Fahad? The night is young. Isabel isn't feeling well, Karim explained smoothly. Bin Rashid's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied Samantha. Have we met before, mademoiselle? Something about you seems familiar. Samantha's heart stuttered, but her smile never wavered. I doubt it. I spend most of my time in Europe. Perhaps at the diplomatic reception in Geneva last year? He pressed. I'm afraid not. I was in Barcelona that season. The lie came easily, her French accent impeccable. Something shifted in Bin Rashid's expression, suspicion giving way to certainty. No, he said softly. I remember now. It was Washington, at the Saudi embassy. Ice flooded Samantha's veins. She had attended a function there during her UN days. Had he seen her? You're mistaken, Karim interjected. Isabel has never been to Washington. Bin Rashid smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My apologies, then. Memory can be deceptive. As they made their excuses and moved toward the exit, Samantha felt Bin Rashid's gaze following them. He knew. Somehow, he knew. In the limousine, she finally released the breath she'd been holding. He recognized me. Impossible, Ahmad said from the front seat. Your disguise was perfect. He mentioned Washington, the Saudi embassy. She turned to Karim. I was there 3 years ago translating for a UN delegation. Karim's expression darkened. If he knows who you are. Then we've lost the element of surprise, she finished grimly. Did you get what we needed? Samantha nodded, removing the miniature camera and flash drive from her clutch. Everything, names, dates, plans, and proof that Caldwell was their American contact. Then we still have leverage. Karim took her hand, his touch unexpectedly gentle. One more night. We compile the evidence, create insurance files, and tomorrow we take this to the one person who can help us. Who? The current CIA director, my father's oldest friend. Hope flickered, then died. If bin Rashid recognized me, we may not have until tomorrow. As if confirming her fears, Ahmad's phone buzzed. His expression turned grim as he read the message. Security breach at the penthouse, he reported. Someone tried to override the elevator access. Karim's grip on her hand tightened. Change of plans. We're not going back to the penthouse. Where then? Samantha asked. Somewhere they'd never look for a billionaire and a fugitive. The smile played at the corner of his mouth. My mother's old apartment in Queens. I kept it after she died, never listed it under my name. As the limousine changed direction, heading toward the Queensboro Bridge, Samantha felt a strange sense of inevitability. In less than 24 hours, her world had been turned upside down yet again. But this time, she wasn't running alone. She glanced at Karim, finding him already watching her, his dark eyes intense. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. "You could have handed me over, saved yourself the trouble." "Because 10 years ago, I made a promise over my parents' graves to find the truth no matter the cost." His voice dropped lower. "And because when you answered me in Arabic at the restaurant, I saw something in you that I recognize in myself." "What's that?" "Someone who refuses to be broken by circumstance." The simple truth of his words touched something deep within her. For the first time in years, Samantha felt truly seen. As the city lights blurred past the windows, she allowed herself to lean slightly against his shoulder. Tomorrow would bring either justice or ruin, but tonight at least, she wasn't facing it alone. Dawn broke over the Queen's neighborhood, painting the modest apartment in soft golden light. Samantha sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by printouts of the evidence they'd stolen. Beside her, Karim reviewed financial records on his laptop, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, a far cry from the polished billionaire the world knew. Ahmad entered, setting down coffee and the burner phones he'd acquired overnight. No signs of surveillance. The safe house is secure. "For now," Samantha murmured, sorting another document into her proof pile. They'd worked through the night, organizing the evidence into an airtight case that even the most skeptical authorities couldn't ignore. "Director Harlow has confirmed the meeting," Karim announced, checking one of the burners. "Noon today at the safe location." Samantha nodded, though anxiety gnawed at her. "If bin Rashid has already realized who I am, we'll be long gone before he can act," Karim assured her, placing a hand over hers. The casual intimacy of the gesture surprised them both, but neither pulled away. The past 18 hours had forged a connection between them that defied explanation. Perhaps it was their shared mission, or the parallel tragedies that had shaped their lives, or perhaps it was something more primal, the recognition of a kindred spirit in the most unexpected place. "What happens after?" she asked quietly. "If this works, if we bring them down, what then?" Karim considered this, his expression thoughtful. "I haven't allowed myself to think that far ahead. Revenge has been my purpose for so long. And now—" Their eyes met, unspoken possibilities hanging between them. Before Karim could answer, Ahmad's phone chimed. "Perimeter alert," he said sharply, moving to the window. Black SUV, 2 men watching the building. "How?" Karim demanded. This address isn't connected to me in any way. Samantha's mind raced. The charity guest list. If Bin Rashid has access to facial recognition software, he could have identified me despite the mask. And if they're monitoring financial transactions. The caterers, Karim realized. I had them deliver food here last night. Paid from an account they could trace. We need to move, now. Ahmad was already gathering the evidence, shoving it into a secure briefcase. They had prepared for this contingency. The apartment had 2 exits, the main door and a fire escape accessible through the bedroom window. Samantha quickly changed from her borrowed sweatpants and t-shirt into jeans and a hoodie, better suited for blending in and running if necessary. Karim emerged from the bedroom similarly dressed in casual clothes that would have been unrecognizable to anyone accustomed to seeing him in bespoke suits. With a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes and stubble darkening his jaw, he looked like an entirely different person. Director Harlow is sending a security team, he informed them, checking the second burner phone. ETA 20 minutes. We may not have 20 minutes, Ahmad warned, peering through the blinds. 2 more men just joined the first team. They're approaching the building. Samantha felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, the same sensation that had kept her alive for 2 years on the run. The fire escape. We can reach the subway before they realize we're gone. And risk being separated, Karim shook his head. We stay together. There's no time to argue, Ahmad interrupted. They're inside the building. A decision was made in seconds. Ahmad would create a diversion at the front entrance while Samantha and Karim escaped via the fire escape with the evidence. They would meet Director Harlow at the backup location, a boathouse in Central Park that Harlow had used for off-the-books meetings for years. Be careful, Karim told Ahmad, clasping his shoulder. You too, sir. Ahmad's usual formality slipped, revealing the friendship beneath their professional relationship. It has been an honor. Samantha felt a lump in her throat at the simple exchange. These men had risked everything, Karim's empire, Ahmad's career, their very lives, all for justice, for truth, for her. They moved swiftly to the fire escape, the metal creaking beneath their weight. 3 floors down, they heard shouting from above. Their pursuers had found the apartment. Move, Karim urged, helping her navigate the last ladder to the alley below. They ran, the briefcase of evidence clutched tightly in Samantha's arms. Karim knew these streets from his childhood visits to his mother's home, leading them through a maze of alleys and side streets to throw off any pursuit. The subway station appeared ahead, salvation in the form of crowded anonymity. They descended the stairs just as a train arrived, slipping inside as the doors closed. In the relative safety of the crowded car, Samantha allowed herself to breathe. Beside her, Karim checked his watch. 90 minutes until we meet Harlow. Will Ahmad be okay? He can take care of himself, no concern lingered in, and he has diplomatic immunity through my company. They can detain him, but they can't hold him. The train rocked gently as it moved through the tunnel, the mundane normalcy of commuters around them, a stark contrast to the life and death stakes of their mission. Thank you, Samantha said suddenly, for believing me, for helping me. Karim studied her face, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. I should be thanking you. For 2 years, I've been collecting evidence, building my case piece by piece, but it was you who found the final proof we needed. The tenderness in his touch, so at odds with the arrogant man she'd first met at the restaurant, made something flutter in her chest. How strange that in the midst of danger, on the run for their lives, she should feel more alive than she had in years. If we survive this, she began hesitantly. When we survive this, he corrected. When we survive this, she amended with a small smile. What will you do? Go back to your hotels, your life? Karim's expression grew serious. That life was built on a foundation of vengeance. Once that purpose is fulfilled, he shook his head. I don't know who I am without it. "You're the man who turned $1 million bet into a mission for justice," Samantha offered. "The man who saw value in a waitress when others saw only someone to be dismissed." His smile transformed his face, erasing years of hardened determination. "And you are the woman who refused my $1 million on principle, who survived alone for 2 years rather than compromise her integrity." The train slowed as it approached the next station. Through the windows, they could see the greenery of Central Park. Their destination was close. They exited cautiously, scanning for any signs of pursuit. The park stretched before them, seemingly peaceful on this spring morning. They walked briskly, taking indirect routes, frequently changing direction to ensure they weren't followed. The boathouse appeared ahead, its classic architecture reflected in the calm water of the lake. Outside, 2 inconspicuous men in casual clothes, Harlow's security team, stood watch. They nodded slightly as Karim and Samantha approached, a pre-arranged signal that the area was secure. Inside, Director Harlow waited, a tall, imposing figure with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He embraced Karim like a son. "You look just like your father," he said gruffly. "Director Harlow." Karim's voice held deep respect. "Thank you for coming. When the son of Ibrahim al-Fahad calls with evidence of a terrorist plot, I listen." Harlow turned to Samantha, recognition dawning in his eyes. "And Samantha Adams, you've been a ghost for 2 years." "Not by choice," she replied. "Your father was one of the best agents I ever knew," Harlow said. "His death never sat right with me." "It wasn't a heart attack," Samantha stated flatly. "I'm beginning to understand that." Harlow gestured to a table. "Show me what you have." For the next 30 minutes they laid out the evidence piece by piece. Operation Sandstorm in its entirety, the planned attacks, the financial network, the operatives embedded in governments across the Middle East, and most damning, Victor Caldwell's role as their American handler. Harlow's expression grew increasingly grave. "This goes deeper than I imagined." He looked up at them. "You realize what this means? The implications? That elements within our own government have been compromised," Karim confirmed. "That Victor Caldwell wasn't acting alone. And bin Rashid has powerful allies who will try to bury this," Samantha added. Harlow nodded slowly. "Which is why we need to move immediately. I have a safe house prepared for both of you while we implement the takedown operation." "Both of us?" Samantha questioned. "You'll need to testify," Harlow explained. "And until we've identified and neutralized all of bin Rashid's network, you remain in danger." Karim took her hand, his eyes asking a silent question. She nodded slightly in response. They were in this together to the end. "What about the charges against Samantha?" Karim asked. "Already handling it," Harlow assured them. "The evidence you've provided clearly implicates bin Rashid's team in framing her for Caldwell's murder." A commotion outside interrupted them, raised voices, then silence. One of Harlow's security men entered, his expression urgent. "Sir, Ahmad al-Zahrani is here. He says it's critical." Ahmad burst in, blood streaking one side of his face. "They know," he gasped. "Bin Rashid is gone, fled the country an hour ago. But he activated sleeper cells before leaving. They're targeting the UN General Assembly session today." Harlow was immediately on his phone, issuing rapid-fire orders for evacuation and counter-terrorism protocols. "How did you find us?" Karim demanded, supporting Ahmad into a chair. "Director Harlow's team extracted me from the apartment," Ahmad explained, wincing as Samantha examined his head wound. "Superficial," he assured her. The next hour passed in a blur of activity as Harlow coordinated a massive security operation. Thanks to the evidence Samantha and Karim had provided, authorities knew exactly where to look, who to arrest, what to prevent. By midday, news broke of a foiled terrorist plot and the arrest of multiple suspects. Bin Rashid himself had escaped justice for now, But his network was crumbling, his assets frozen, his allies under investigation. Operation Sandstorm had been neutralized before it could unleash chaos across the Middle East. "It's over," Harlow told them finally. "Not completely, these cases never are, but the immediate threat has been contained." "And Caldwell's co-conspirators within the government?" Samantha pressed, "being dealt with at the highest levels." Harlow's grim expression suggested a reckoning that would happen behind closed doors. "Now, about that safe house." "Actually," Karim interrupted, "I have an alternative proposal." 3 months later, Samantha stood on the deck of a sleek yacht anchored off the Amalfi coast. The Mediterranean sparkled around her, its azure waters a world away from Manhattan restaurants and international conspiracies. Arms encircled her from behind, and she leaned back into Karim's embrace. "Regretting your decision," he murmured against her hair. Samantha turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had transformed from arrogant stranger to essential partner in the span of a heartbeat. "Which one? Testifying against international terrorists, going into witness protection, or agreeing to marry you?" His smile still had the power to catch her breath. "All of the above. Not for a second." She rose on tiptoes to kiss him, though I'm still getting used to being Isabelle Laurent. "Only on paper," he reminded her. "To me, you'll always be the waitress who turned down $1 million. And you'll always be the entitled billionaire who learned humility through justice." Their new identities, courtesy of Director Harlow and witness protection, were a small price to pay for safety. Karim had relinquished day-to-day control of his hotel empire, though he maintained ownership through layers of security that even bin Rashid's remaining allies couldn't penetrate. Ahmad had recovered fully, now heading security for their foundation, the Adams Al-Fahad Initiative for International Peace, funded by the very $1 million that had started it all. Justice had been served, though not perfectly. Some conspirators had escaped, others had been protected by political necessity. But the truth was known, their father's legacies honored, and the longest-running operation of betrayal in Middle Eastern politics had been exposed. "Any regrets?" Karim asked more seriously. "Your life in New York? Your career? My life as a waitress hiding from assassins?" She laughed. "Not exactly a difficult choice." The sun was setting over the Mediterranean, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. In a few days, they would be married in a private ceremony, with Ahmad and a few trusted friends in attendance. Life had taken her from diplomatic translator to fugitive waitress, to the fiancée of a reformed billionaire with a passion for justice. Not the path she'd imagined, but standing here in Karim's arms, Samantha knew it was exactly where she belonged. "You never did tell me," she said suddenly. "That night at the restaurant, when you offered me $1 million, did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Karim smiled, drawing her closer. "Honestly, no. But I'm beginning to think it was the best investment I ever made." As their lips met, Samantha silently agreed. Some things were worth far more than $1 million. Truth, justice, and love that began with an arrogant challenge in a New York restaurant and culminated in redemption on the shores of the Mediterranean. Sometimes the most unexpected beginnings led to the most perfect endings.